Welcome to Basic Science. My name is Sam and I'm gonna be your teacher for a while. And today we're focusing on the most beautiful of sciences, that is biology. Biology studies everything that is alive. Okay? And we'll start with a very important question, one of the most ancient questions ever. What is life? Can you answer that? I don't know. Let's pause the video for a second. Think about it, give it some thought, and tell me what you think life is. You ready? Okay. Did you come up with an answer? I don't think so, because I can't, and because actually no one can. You know, scientists have been trying to answer that question for far too long, and they came up to the conclusion that it's not science, it's philosophy, and it's very difficult to answer. So they just said, instead of answering what life is, let's just say what makes people, what makes things, what makes animals and plants alive. And they came up with a list of 8 characteristics, right? So our objective for today's class is to learn and remember those 8 things that living organisms have in common. You, me, a plant, a bacterium, everybody has these 8. You ready? Here we go. Okay, so we start with our list of 8 characteristics of living organisms. Okay, characteristic number 1 says every living organism is made of 1 or more cells. Cells are tiny little units of structure. What is a structure? Structure is the way you are made. If you have 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, whatever, the most basic unit of it, the brick of your building, is a cell. We have animal cells, such as these, and we have plant cells that are a little bit more like a polygon, like this, and they together, millions and millions of them, make a complete being, such as yourself. But there are some organisms that are made of only 1. Bacteria is an example. Okay? Just remember, all living organisms are made of 1 or more cells. That's a good cooking. Oops, oh, you got me red-handed. Yep, I'm eating because, you know, I'm alive. Our second characteristic is every living organism needs a way to make energy. Us human beings have to eat. Then our food goes to the stomach, stomach to the guts, guts to the blood, and then blood takes the nourishment to every single cell, and each of these cells has a system to produce energy. If you are alive, you make energy, and you need it. This characteristic is quite easy to remember, just think about it. If you didn't eat, you wouldn't do any work. If you didn't do any work, you would be dead, or simply you wouldn't be alive. Okay, characteristic number 3. One of the things in which we use all this energy we get from food is growing. All organisms grow and develop. You're not going to stay the same throughout your life. You might not look that different than you were 3 or 5 years ago, and you might not look that different from yourself in 10 or 15, but you're definitely not going to be the same. Okay? We have some things called secondary characteristics that you've probably have been suffering lately, like growing hair where it shouldn't be, you know what I'm saying? The thing is, if you're alive, you will have different stages of life. One of the most, let's say, well, it's a pretty stunning example of a very big change throughout the stages of life. It is a kind of insect called ephemerum. Ephemerum, for example, there's this species called Dolenia americana. Dolenia americana spends about 1 year in its larvary state. Larvary state means baby, okay? It's a baby, however, it's pretty big. It can, about 2 centimeters long, alright? But it can eat, it can, actually it's a predator, it hunts its prey, spends its time doing insect stuff, you know. And then one day when they are ready to reproduce, they grow wings, they come out of water, because they were living in water for the first year, and they live only 5 minutes, you know. They spend so much energy on reproduction that after they fly and get a couple, they just reproduce, mate, and die. The moral here is reproduction spends a lot of energy, so put it off as much as you can, alright? And speaking about reproduction, we've come to characteristic number 4, and that's what it is. If you are alive, you have the capability of reproduction. You might say, that's pretty obvious, you know, if you didn't reproduce, you wouldn't exist, we would have stopped existing as a species a long time ago. You will be right, but then someone else might say, you know, my aunt Fergie did not want to have children, that doesn't mean she's not alive. He is right. Or maybe maybe you know someone who can't have children, that doesn't mean he is not alive, but believe me, by this one, if you are alive, you have the capability, your species has it. If you don't want to, but if you are sick, that's a different story, okay? Characteristic number 5. All living organisms have a defined structure which helps them survive. You'll see. You might say that minerals, for example, let's take a look at this brick. This brick has a structure, you know, well, sort of square. It's made of minerals which are arranged, because you probably know a little bit of chemistry, and you know that it's made of compounds that have an arrangement. But you know, it could be smaller. You know, it could have come off from a wall, or a rock might be part of a bigger one. You know, that doesn't really help it do anything. You know, on the opposite, living organisms have a defined structure that help them survive. Yes. Let's see an example. Rudy, get over here. Rudy, come on, boy. Come on, come on. Ah, that's a cute boy. Get over here, Rudy. This is my friend Rudy. Tiny duck. You know, Rudy has a head and 4 legs and a tail. You know, and all of it has a function. The tail helps it balance. You know, so think about it. It's kind of mean to chop a duck's tail. You know. There's a reason why you have 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. And that reason is survival. Characteristic number 6. All organisms adapt and evolve. We were talking about survival. Well, it turns out organisms have the capability of adapting to changes in the environment over a long period of time in order to survive. We call this evolution. Okay? An example is our friend the polar bear right here. Polar bears are white. You have probably noticed that. Well, it turns out there's a mutation. A mutation is a small problem, a tiny problem in your DNA, in your cells, that sometimes, only a few times actually, turns out an advantage. And this guy turns out to lack melanin. Melanin is a protein that keeps us colder. The more melanin you have, the browner your skin is. Alright, this guy has almost none. Its fur is completely white, and turns out this is an advantage because polar bears live in the Arctic. They hunt seals and other animals, you know, and they just don't see it coming. Being white in the Arctic is camouflage. That is an adaptation that took millions of years to develop. We might not see evolution in our lifespans, you know, we only live 90 years if we are lucky, but there is evidence that all organisms have had a previous design, and that design has has started to change depending on the environment. That's evolution. Characteristic number 7. Speaking of adaptation, the next characteristic is sort of an adaptation, but this happens immediately, alright? And it says, all living organisms are able to react to external stimuli. Okay? What does this mean? Well, think about it. If you are walking at school, let's say during recess, and there are people playing soccer, you hear someone hit the ball real hard behind you. What do? Do you turn to see where the ball, if the ball is coming at you, or do you just duck? I believe you duck. Better safe than sorry, right? You don't think about it, you just react. Living organisms react instinctively when there is something dangerous in the environment. And you might think, well, this is easy to see with animals, what happens with plants? Well, plants most of the time have chemical reactions. An example is that smell you get when someone is mowing the lawn. Smells nice, some people like it, some people say, oh, that's grass blood, gross. Actually, it's a chemical message sent to all the members of the species in the area that says, danger, danger, you're gonna die real soon. Are they gonna run away? No, they aren't, but at least someone has told them. Someone's told them. And well, if you want to see an example of a plant that visually reacts, just wait a second. And here we are. Well, in Mexico we call this plant dormilona, sleepy one. It's easy to get. Yeah, you can get one in Xochimilco, for example. It's not very expensive. Look at it go. It's reacting. It immediately closes, strains its leaves when I touch it. Did you see that? Did you see that? Well, why does it do that? The hypothesis is that it tries to play dead, okay? It tries to show that it's withering, and when you are withered, you're not as tasty. And we've come to characteristic number 8, and characteristic number 8 comes with a mouthful, and we say this: all living organisms are able of maintaining homeostasis. Homeostasis. Home, static. Home that doesn't move. It's not difficult to remember, you know. All living organisms are going to always strive to maintain their internal medium stable. Okay? Most typical example is temperature. You might get sick sometime, get some fever, and our bodily temperature is usually 37 degrees Celsius. But sometimes you get too hot, 38, 39. Before you get to 40, they better get you something cold. Alright? Because that's when your brain cells start dying and you don't want to stop being bright, right? However, that's just in case of emergencies. When we are sick, we need a little help. On normal situations, on normal conditions, our body will do it by itself. Typical example is sweating. If the medium is too hot, you've been running, playing soccer in the summer, you're going to start sweating because a part of your brain called the hypothalamus, which amongst other things, many other things, works as a thermostat. A thermostat is a machine that maintains temperature stable, okay? Well, your hypothalamus is going to send your body a message to start sweating, because sweating is not for stinking, it's for refreshing, alright? On the opposite, on a very cold day, if you didn't bring a jacket, you're going to start trembling, shivering, and this shivering is a message from the hypothalamus to your body to move, because movement equals heat. The idea is to maintain your medium stable. All living organisms do this. Okay? And that's gonna be it. This is our last characteristic of life. I hope you remember them. My name is Sam, and it's been a pleasure to be with you. Like and subscribe, share. Goodbye.